Welcome to this edition of Apple's Video Magazine, Tools of Inclusion, Assistive Technology for Young Children. We begin with an essay written by mothers of children with Down syndrome.
I am often asked to describe the experience of raising a child with a disability, to try to help people who have not shared that unique experience to understand it, to imagine how it would feel. It's like this. When you're going to have a baby, it's like planning a fabulous vacation trip to Italy. You buy a bunch of guidebooks and make your wonderful plans, the Colosseum, the Michelangelo David, the gondolas in Venice. You may learn some handy phrases in Italian. It's all very exciting. After months of eager anticipation, the day finally arrives. You pack your bags and off you go. Several hours later, the plane lands. The stewardess comes in and says, "Welcome to Holland." Holland, you say? What do you mean Holland? I signed up for Italy. I'm supposed to be in Italy. All my life, I've dreamed of going to Italy. But there's been a change in the flight plan. They've landed in Holland, and they tell you that there you must stay. The important thing is that they haven't taken you to a horrible, disgusting, filthy place full of pestilence, famine, and disease. It's just a different place. So you must go and buy new guidebooks, and you must learn a whole new language, and you will meet a whole new group of people you would never have met. It's just a different place. It's slower paced than Italy, less flashy than Italy. But after you've been there for a while and you catch your breath, you look around and you begin to notice that Holland has windmills. Holland has tulips. Holland even has Rembrandts. But everyone you know is busy coming and going from Italy. And they're all bragging about what a wonderful time they've had there. And for the rest of your life, you would say, "Yes, that's where I was supposed to go. That's what I had planned." And the pain of that would never, ever, ever, ever go away, because the loss of that dream is a very significant loss.
Then it occurs to you that maybe what they told you about staying in Holland isn't the only option. Maybe you can still go to Italy with the wonderful tulip bulb you received in Holland. Maybe some of the gardeners from Holland will go with you to show you how to nurture and grow your tulip bulb in Italy. And maybe you will bring some soil from Holland to mix with the Italian soil. And maybe you will need to bring a bulb digger tool to prepare the ground for your tulip bulb. Then, the rest of your life, you won't have to say, "Yes, Italy, that's where I was supposed to go, that's what I planned," because you and yours will live and grow and belong in Italy. And the dream that was lost will be reborn. A different dream, but a dream full of wonder about the very lovely things of Holland that are cultivated and flourish in Italy. This is the basis of the video magazine, to find and use what assistive technology has to offer for inclusive and successful experiences with any mix of young children. Let's start with some definitions. What is assistive technology? Often people think it's something expensive, complicated, and probably computer-related, but the law says it this way. An assistive technology device is any item, piece of equipment, or product system, whether acquired commercially off the shelf, modified, or customized, and that is used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities of individuals with disabilities. So assistive technology devices can range from any ordinary item that has been adapted or changed to an extraordinary custom designed item. One end of the continuum is called low-tech and the other end high-tech. But it isn't just the devices, the items, that define assistive technology. There are also assistive technology services. This is defined in the law as any service that directly assists a child with a disability in the selection, acquisition, or use of an assistive technology device. Services include evaluation of a child's AT needs, purchasing, leasing, or providing AT devices, selecting, designing, fitting, customizing, adapting, applying, retaining, repairing, or replacing assistive technology devices, coordinating and using therapies with AT devices, training or technical assistance for a child or family or professionals involved with the child. Together, the AT devices and the AT services benefit our world by enabling those with disabilities to be among those without, and it allows capabilities to be actualized. Another concept that is often confused with assistive technology is universal design. Assistive technology and universal design have a relationship, but different meanings. According to Ron Mace, universal design expert, universal design is the design of products and environments to be usable by all people to the greatest extent possible without the need for adaptation or specialized design. In other words, universal design is created to avoid the need, where possible, for assistive technology. Another concept that is closely related is universal design learning. It broadens universal design from physical space and materials to curriculum, teaching strategies, and assessment. This approach, developed by the Center for Applied Special Technology, CAST, is based on flexibility and resourcefulness in planning program components and focuses on planning for the widest diversity of learners. These ideas to make life in America more inclusive are backed up by federal and state laws. Most applicable to young children are two federal laws: the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, called IDEA, and the Assistive Technology Act, often referred to as the TECH Act. Both of these were just amended in 2004. IDEA requires that all children eligible for special education services receive them in the least restrictive environment, beginning with the place the child would receive their education if it were not for the disability. This may mean a Head Start program or Montessori preschool. The education team then can identify specific supports like assistive technology to enable the student to participate and learn. If, with assistive technology and other special ed services, the child cannot learn satisfactorily in this environment, a more restrictive environment will be chosen. IDEA mandates that all students with disabilities be considered for AT needs. IDEA also mandates that assistive technology devices and assistive technology services are made available to the child when the child's individual education program, IEP, calls for such. The first federal technology law for people with disabilities was passed in 1988. Illinois was one of only 10 states who received funds to create a consumer responsive system. That system still serves as the Illinois Assistive Technology Project. Given the intentions for inclusive environments and the federal direction to use assistive technology, we will hear from Linda Robinson on how some of this looks in preschool classrooms.
When it comes to centers in the early childhood classroom, universal design means more than making materials and activities accessible to all children. It also means taking into consideration children's diverse interests, abilities, and learning styles. We can begin by thinking of some general design steps that apply to all centers. Although we may call these steps adaptations, they really are universal design elements, something from which all children can benefit. A simple addition of knobs to puzzles ensures that all children have opportunities to work with puzzle pieces. Thicker handles on brushes and markers serve as grips for drawing and writing. Adding a variety of tools to use with Play-Doh or including different seating options at circle time are part of universal design. Since all children need a form of communication throughout the classroom, picture symbols, choice cards, and portable communication devices should be accessible in all of the centers. Each child then has an opportunity to choose a favorite song for the class to sing.
I want Wheels on the Bus.
I want Wheels on the Bus. Yeah?
A child can also indicate individual preferences for activities or toys through a communication device. A variety of overlays can be readily available for communication throughout the day. While some children use words to ask for snack choices, others may use pictures to indicate what they want to eat.
This is my swing case.
Oh,
she brought a slinky. Can you show us, Carmen?
A communication device may be the tool to help a child participate in show and tell. Labels for the various centers in the room should be designed so that they are purposeful and simple and meet the needs of all children. Including a drawing or digital picture with the word makes it easy for children to understand. Adding braille or textures to the lettering may also be helpful. Picture schedules help children remember the classroom routine. These may be found on a wall or cabinet. A Velcro version can be used by a child to discuss what comes next in the day's activities.
You showed your friend, didn't you?
I'll show you how to make a bed.
Okay, first is attendance. Second is talking about the weather. And then we say our pledge allegiance to the flag.
Let's look now at specific design elements for each center. With an appropriately designed environment in the Reading Center, books and other literacy materials will be accessible for all children. Low shelves and comfortable seating provide an inviting atmosphere for exploring books. The Reading Center should include a variety of adapted books. Since the ability to handle a book and turn pages may affect a child's interest in books, simple adaptations can be made to ensure all children can participate in literacy activities. Some children may need a book with page fluffers, which is a small piece of foam attached to cardboard and clipped to the pages of a book. A child can turn the pages of a book independently with this simple adaptation. A variation can be made by putting a dot of hot glue in the corners of a book's pages. A child who has difficulty handling a book may now be interested in turning pages. He may then be able to attend to the content of the book. Braille tape and textures may also be added to books. Book holders can be purchased or custom made to assist children in enjoying books independently. Some children enjoy listening to books on tape, while others would rather look at a book at their own pace. By having comfortable seating, such as beanbag chairs and a switch-adapted tape recorder, two friends can sit side by side and listen or read books in their own way. One child presses a switch to advance to the next page, while the other turns the page in her book. Another child can enjoy the same book on tape from her wheelchair. A switch is attached to a battery interrupter, which is a small piece of double-sided copper attached to a wire and phone plug. This is then inserted into the tape recorder battery compartment and makes the tapes accessible with a switch. Another way that children can enjoy a book is through the use of the bookworm, a battery-operated device that records pages of a book being read. Children can then press the designated area on each page to hear the story. They can hear their favorite book read to them over and over again. If needed, a child could also press a switch to hear the page read. A fidget toy or a book with Velcro story figures can be used during circle time when the teacher is reading a book to the group. This type of book helps the child attend to the activity and even serves as a form of communication when the child is asked a question about the story.
What did he eat? Apples, that's right. Isaac, if you give a mouse
A story apron with Velcro figures serves the same purpose in another classroom.
I have some of those things, like a cookie. So I'm going to give everybody one of these to hold on to, and then you have to see what you think you have, okay?
I want a cookie.
Carmen, do you want to hold the picture? You did draw. That's a nice picture. I like it.
Since early writing is an important part of emergent literacy development, having an accessible writing center ensures that all children will have opportunities to write. The environment should include an accessible table and chairs with room for a wheelchair. A variety of writing tools and paper are important. Symbols and stickers should also be readily available for children who want to communicate with these in combination with words or in place of words. Paper on clipboards provides children with a portable and sturdy writing surface. Paper can also be taped to a table to provide stability for young writers. For others, paper propped on a slant board works best. Adding a foam piece to a marker may help a child grip the writing instrument. Others may find that writing in a position on their stomach on the floor brings the writing materials closer to them and increases the strength in their back, shoulder, and elbows to make writing easier. If needed, a child could also be placed over a tumble form or roll on the floor to free his or her arms for writing. By placing writing tools and other literacy materials throughout the classroom centers, children are encouraged to write as a form of communication. As children take turns at different centers, a sign-up sheet can be used to manage time and provide a purposeful writing experience. Many of the adaptations made for writing instruments can also be made for art tools. The Art Center will be a popular area for all children if the environment and materials are easily accessible. A variety of large crayons, markers, brushes, and rollers can be purchased for the classroom. However, simple adaptations such as adding grips to paintbrushes or markers, or adding thickeners, textures, or fragrances to paints may make drawing possible and enjoyable. Taping paper to the wall or on an easel at eye level, or placing an art project inside a shirt box, cookie sheet, or tray provides a stable and confined surface that some children need. A slant board can also provide support for drawing. By providing a variety of scissors, all children can participate in cutting activities. A specially designed drawing tablet provides a bright, adaptable surface for creating artwork. When movement is made with a stylus or a finger or hand, an image is created on the transparent cover. For children who are hesitant to explore art materials, a musical art pad can be the tool that opens the door to an interest in drawing. In one classroom, a little boy who does not like to draw with traditional materials becomes engaged in drawing as he uses the pad. In another classroom, a teacher displays artwork of a young child with autism who would not normally choose to come to the Art Center. He started using the musical art pad on Monday, and by the end of the week had progressed in his artwork due to his genuine interest in drawing and exploring different tools on the pad each day. Many children enjoy building with blocks. Although most classrooms may have a variety of blocks, such as wooden blocks, cardboard blocks, plastic blocks, or even interlocking blocks, simple adaptations and environmental considerations will ensure all children can participate in block building. By providing magnetic or textured blocks or putting Velcro strips on blocks, children who have difficulty handling blocks will have less frustration. Also, blocks with shakers and bells inside may be appealing. To make block building a successful experience, encourage children to build against a stable surface or allow them to build inside a large box. A child may be more comfortable lying on a wedge mat while building. Having a carpeted area in the block center will absorb sound. Having a table where a child can stand or sit to build will also help. Rotating the types of blocks available to children will encourage them to explore and build in different ways. For some children, limiting the number of blocks available may help them when they first come to the center. By providing adapted props such as pencil puppets, puppet bracelets, dress-up clothes with Velcro fasteners, or even a switch and toy, a teacher can ensure that all children have opportunities to play. By setting up boundaries in the center, children are kept close to each other for interaction. Children can be taught to include their peers with disabilities when playing. Setting play objects on low shelves and on a table ensures easy access for all children. Communication methods such as picture choices, or a device allow children to talk about what they are doing or make choices for the next activity. An adapted camera lets one little girl participate with others by capturing their actions as she moves in her wheelchair from one center to another. The pictures are printed and saved so she can use them as part of her communication system or just for her review. Children's interest in nature and science can be piqued with an accessible science center containing novel objects. By adding the ProScope, a computer microscope, to the center, children can explore any object by magnifying it on the computer screen. A laptop computer works well with this activity, although a desktop computer could also be used. Children are interested in everything from snow in the sensory table to rocks and kernels of corn to fabrics in their clothes. Skin and hair also make interesting magnified images. The images in turn can be saved on the computer and used by children in books or other classroom projects. This small device lets children magnify objects that they may have difficulty seeing or that they want to explore in new ways.
Look, the letter J!
Since a computer is now part of most early childhood classrooms, consideration needs to be given to the design of the computer center. Although software content can be integrated into all of the centers, children must be able to access the programs independently through the use of a mouse or an alternate input device such as a switch and switch interface, a touch screen, or the IntelliKeys, which is a touch-sensitive tablet that can be used with customized overlays. An overlay can be made to go along with a favorite story, such as the Gingerbread Man. Children's voices can be recorded in the program so that the activity is something familiar to the children. As one child uses an adaptive input method, another child can use the keyboard. Each is participating equally. The computer monitor should be at eye level for children in child-sized chairs as well as those in wheelchairs. Usually, an adjustable table works well. The input device should be in a stable position with dicem or matting underneath to hold it in place. A switch holder or mount may also be used. Through a technology assessment, the child support team can decide what software and input device would be best. One girl enjoys pressing the switch to reach her goal of popping the child's bubblegum on the computer. This activity is usually done with one of her friends as they take turns. She presses her switch and her friend presses the mouse. An important component of technology activities is selecting software that allows children to explore. Some programs, such as Arthur's Birthday or Green Eggs and Ham, are based on popular children's books and come with printed versions to promote literacy. These books serve as off-computer materials to complement software content. By being constantly aware of children's individual needs and designing the classroom environment so that all children can participate in activities, you will be giving children the best opportunity to learn and interact with peers. For other ideas on universal design in early childhood, refer to the Technology Fan, Supports for Young Children, distributed by TAM, the Council for Exceptional Children's Technology and Media Division.
When high tech is needed, it can be very expensive for most families. In Illinois, the Illinois Assistive Technology Project offers a particularly good source to address the challenges of paying for equipment. Let's look at how and what you can find there. This 3-part online manual begins with basic information for families new to assistive technology. Part 2 lists go-to agencies for seeking funding assistance. This listing is not just to link to an agency, but also a synopsis of their programs and services. It states, if you think you're getting the runaround, be sure to use the suggestions in How to Complain and When. The 3rd part offers an array of documents to guide you through various situations. This one will help you consider many things that you may not have thought about, from personal considerations like Does it help me do what I want or need to do? Are there any limits or risks? May I have a trial period to see if this works for me? Clear to training considerations. What skills do I need to learn? Is training included in the purchase price? The handouts accompanying this Apple's video magazine give you more resources for funding and types of information relative to inclusive environments and assistive technology. There are many excellent websites worth pursuing. A good source for online training related to young children in assistive technology is the Early Childhood Technology Integrated Instructional System, EasyTies. EasyTies offers 9 workshops to help educators and families learn to select, use, and integrate technology into preschool curriculum.
It is our hope that considering assistive technology as a tool to inclusion will inspire you to seek other tools that open the world so that no one is forced to remain in Holland, when their dream was to go to Italy. Please join us for our next Apple's Video magazine, Literacy, Bringing Books to Life. And thanks for watching.